Hi, welcome along to Transfer Daily, and it's emerging today that the #1 target for centre back for Arsenal is Kostas Manolas. He's been linked by practically every media outlet today. We spoke briefly about him yesterday. He's a Greek international. You saw him in the World Cup. Looked very good in the World Cup, actually, and also plays for Olympiacos. 23 years of age. I must admit, he's come way off the radar. Nobody was really considering him a few days ago for the Arsenal position for him to come in and replace Thomas Vermaelen. But he seems to be the player that Arsenal are ready to sign at the moment. If you was to believe all of the media outlets today, they're all placing him as the #1 target for centre back for Arsenal. And I don't know, it'd be a pretty decent signing. As I said, he looked very good in the World Cup, very competent in the position. He's young enough to get better, and although he's not a major name, I suppose you're going to be coming in as sort of cover, as I've sort of explained. You're going to be cover, but also you could be thrown in there and play a lot of games. And he's been playing at Olympiacos, so he's been playing at a very good level. He played in the World Cup, as I said, looked very good. So it could be a very good signing if it comes off. The only sticking point is there are a lot of other clubs chasing him. One of those clubs being Juventus. They're very interested in signing him as well. He's also been linked with clubs like Spurs, Everton, a host of clubs around Europe after his signature. He'd only recently just signed a new deal that takes him to 2017 with his club Olympiacos. But Arsenal are very interested in signing him, and could boil down, if Arsenal definitely do go for him, could boil down to him going to either Arsenal or Juventus. Now, both of those would be very good propositions for him. Both of them are in the Champions League. Both of them are very ambitious clubs, and clubs that are going to probably have very good seasons. So it will probably boil down to which one of those he chooses. But Manolas, definitely the player at the moment that's on everybody's lips that could come in to replace Thomas Vermaelen. Another player that's been spoken about a lot today, and again, we mentioned him yesterday. Again, it's all over the papers again today. The Daily Mirror going very strong with this one today. Is Cheick Tioté. He's the tough tackling defensive midfielder who plays for Newcastle, 28 years of age now. Also Ivory Coast international. You guys all know about him. We know that we need a defensive midfielder, and he is the player that a lot of outlets again linking with Arsenal. And as I said, particularly the Daily Mirror, who are saying that Arsenal are preparing to make an £8 million bid for Cheick Tioté. As I said yesterday, not a bad player, not a bad player at all, but I don't know, he commits a lot of fouls, and is he that Arsenal standard type player? I'm not 100% sure. He's good. He's very good. I don't know. The jury's still out for me on Cheick Tioté. Don't get me wrong. We know that as a defensive midfielder, he's a tough nut in there. But is he what Arsenal need? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Morgan Schneiderlin also being linked again today. Now, caught offside, who, let's face it, they've got a lot of things wrong this summer. Loads and loads. Practically every prediction they've made has gone wrong. They're coming again with another bold prediction that Arsenal are ready in a bid within the next 48 hours to try and get Schneiderlin from Southampton for £27 million. I mean, I hope not. He's not worth nowhere near that. Morgan Schneiderlin, £27 million. That'd be crazy as far as I'm concerned if they paid that much money for him. Would take a lot of money to prize him away, because remember, Southampton have come out and said they're not selling him. He's very unhappy because he wants to move on. He could be a target for Arsene Wenger. He's a French international, as we know. He just recently, in the last World Cup, he came in at last minute and replaced Ribéry in the French squad. Schneiderlin, for me, decent player. I don't know. I don't know. But again, the jury's out a bit for me on Morgan Schneiderlin. But according to Court Offside, Arsenal willing to pay up to £27 million. I can't believe that fee. And one last one who's been linked. Now, this guy was a player that was being linked heavily last year. A lot of people thought that the deal was going to come off. He opted to go and play for Wolfsburg instead in Germany. He was previously at Bayern Munich, and that is Luis Gustavo. Didn't have the greatest of World Cups to remember. As a matter of fact, he started off pretty decently in the World Cup, but to the latter ends of the World Cup, he was pretty poor. But he is a good tackler. I remember being in New York the other day and having lots of arguments with Hugh Wizzy, who was saying to me that he thinks that Luis Gustavo could be the answer to our midfield problems there in defensive midfield. I wasn't too sure. But he, again, is being linked today. So that's 3 defensive midfielder targets there. We've spoken about Czech Tiote, Morgan Schneidlin, and Luis Gustavo. I don't know which one out of those 3 you would prefer, but those are 3 being talked about today. Let's see what you guys had to say yesterday about some of the players being linked. And Darden RS actually mentioned that. He says, is Luis Gustavo realistically available? Wolfsburg are not going to want to sell him. They only just bought him in last year, but you know, if Arsenal have got money, so they can dislodge players like this. 87 Michael says Tiote. He says no way. He says I don't want him anywhere near the club. His disciplinary record is shocking too. Lucas Johansson, I think he's having a laugh here. He says, what do you mean we need a centre-back? We've got Monreal. Well, Monreal was just filling in the other day, and let's face it, he's miles and miles away from being a centre-back. I think he's, you know, he was just, there was no one else to play that position, so that's why he was playing there. Kidavid says, if we don't get an established central defensive midfielder, teams like Chelsea, Everton, and Liverpool will run through us again. We've got to stop being naive, and sorry, he says stop being naive and delusional, Wenger. And so he definitely wants Wenger to get out there and get a proper defensive midfielder. Alex Slowick says we need to go and buy Daniel Agger. Couple more here. Sivan Gonda says, I'm sensing another transfer deadline day swoop, and I'm starting to sense that as well, mate. Meddi, and he's obviously, he's not obviously a Czech Tiote fan, he says, Tiote is trash. He's not up to Arsenal's quality. And one more here. Kevin 08 for life says we really need William Carvalho. He's a solid defensive midfielder, and we will get he will be perfect. He'll be perfect fit for the team. Tiote is not as good as him, and Tiote is not good enough for Arsenal. So that's seems to be your verdict there. Not one person really coming out and saying that they'd like to see Tiote at the club. As I said, keep suggesting those defensive midfielders, and let me know what you guys think of Manolas. Is he the sort of player that we need there? Yeah, he's just quite an imposing guy, 6 foot, nearly 6'3". And as I said, in the World Cup, I was pretty impressed by him. Can he be that player to come in and be, you know, a future star? Because you know what? How many of us knew who Thomas Vermaelen was before he came to Arsenal? How many of us knew who Laurent Koscielny was before he's come to Arsenal? And they turned out to be brilliant defenders. So this guy could be the next star. We're going to have to watch this space and see what happens. Thanks for watching Transfer Daily, and we'll be back tomorrow.